Is this Kira?
Hello.
Hi,
Yes.
Kira. This is Pilleater. How are you?
Hi. I'm
Uh,
fine. Long day.
it's been a long day. I haven't seen you in a while.
Well, yeah, holidays.
Holidays? I'm actually
Holidays are upon us.
I'm actually sick at the moment, and I just got done a podcast with Robert Stark, and so I thought maybe I would call you and talk about the situation I'm in online right now.
Getting attacked by our lovely members of groups and
Yes,
organizations.
yes, I am. Do you know something called the HAPA Reddit board?
Wait, which Reddit board?
It's called HAPA, HAPA Reddit.
Oh no, that sounds scary. I've
It
read it in general, just it's too much.
okay, so it's a board of people who are like half Asian, like half white, half Asian, just exclusively that, and they basically hate their like white dads or white mom, no, mostly white dads, and they say that they lose in the game of multiculturalism and diversity. And so their message is that if you're half Asian, you should kill yourself, and that you should make misery and call everyone a racist because your life is not that good. And that's kind of, it's supposed to be like a social justice movement, but it fails. And so like I've been posting my like recent YouTube videos on the HAPA Reddit board, and I got banned on it, and now they hate me.
Oh wow.
Yes.
That's crazy. I mean, your videos are more positive, so to see people sitting here saying, let's kill each other because we're half Asian.
Well, actually, here's the thing. I'm kind of the opponent of the HAPA Reddit board. It's because I made up this thing. It's kind of a, you know,
You're pro mixing. You're pro
not exactly. I,
ed
I like to use a
diversity.
word. It's a funny word called Asian Aryanism. And I know it sounds like some Nazi Aryan race, but it has nothing to do with it. I'm saying is that there is a huge mass of millennials who basically come from white dads and Asian moms, or even Asian dads and white moms, and they're like half white, half Asian, and everyone like congregates and meet each other, but they're very secret about it. And so, guess what? This is a form of Aryanism, but particularly an Asian Aryanism. But supposedly that's racist because we live in a multicultural society, and you can't, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's weird because I think that's the absurd because well, no, I think it's absurd is because I am pretty much the racial I do like different races, and it's absurd to say that I'm some kind of racist because well, I don't know. It's funny because I can understand. I'm getting hate mail from like the far right, and I literally got a YouTube PM that told me to fuck off Jew.
But you're not a Jew.
No, I'm not. Yeah, but they think I'm a Jew. Why is that?
Because you're talking about Asian Aryism.
How do you think it's offensive, or should I lower my language?
I think the word choice is a strong word choice. It does attract people to it. And when people hear that, they immediately think Nazi Germany. However, if they put one and two together, also those two were partners during the war. So German people, and there's a large group of people in like certain parts of Asia right now who still wear Nazi symbols and things like that
You
because they do believe in the purity of their culture.
you were showing me the picture too on Facebook. I thought that was funny. It was coming from this Facebook guy called Taiwanese something, but I thought it was interesting because he was relating it to Tila Tequila. Do you know her?
Oh yeah, she is the craziest,
I like
funniest person
tequila.
ever.
Did you see her do the Seek Held event at the One White Nationalist event where she Seek Held?
Yeah, she's so crazy.
She, in
I
my
think that
definition, would be an Asian Aryan.
yeah, true to the form, like she's about, but it's that high, like it's still the same thing. It's that you feel like there's a group of Asian people who truly feel that you shouldn't intermingle in the races, as there is a group of people in the Nazi Germany who felt like you shouldn't intermingle. So
Isn't it weird
both of
though
those
that
cultures do share that same inclination.
Isn't it weird though that Tequila does porn, has a child, and like is associated with this whole alt-right stuff, and it's like she's almost doing it out of like a punk rock mentality or something. Like it's not like this prudish behavior, it's this kind of shock art thing, right?
She's doing it like a lot of celebrities do crazy things for attention.
Yeah.
You know, as a porn star, once you hit a certain age, and on top of that, once you have a child and you're older, people no longer. I mean, I guess you could do some MILF category stuff, but
I haven't looked
at
at
a
her
certain age,
porn.
you're no longer good.
I mean, some people have showed me pictures, but I'm kind of the prude. So, but she actually has looked over one of my novel actually, but I can't really confirm it. I have a novel, some of my stories, and it's kind of like weird. I don't know how to describe it, but I have like 30,000 words down, and they're kind of just these weird avant-garde stories about maybe Asian Aryanism, but something like that. It's not like a manifesto or anything, but she probably has looked over it. And maybe I can stalk her enough so she can write the forward to my book.
I don't feel like you need to stalk her. It's just, hey, I feel like you have a lot of points of that we both agree with. I would like to know if you would give me your thoughts or opinions about certain things, and that could be your forward. What are
Maybe.
your thoughts on this? Like, what is your thoughts on Asian guys and white women?
Do you know who
And
and what?
oh, it's just like, what are your thoughts on Asian guys and white women? And what are your thoughts on being independent as a woman and not following the traditional things of saying that you're going to stick solely to dating other Asian males?
Do you know who Margaret Cho is?
Oh yeah, I've seen her comedy special too.
I love Cho. I love her. On my channel, I uploaded an interview with her. Jim Goad interviews Margaret Cho. Now, if you don't know who Jim Goad is like this old school American skinhead punk rock Vice writer, and he's known for a magazine called Answer Me. But hey, in this 40-minute interview on my YouTube channel, they both agree upon terms what I would call quote unquote Asian Aryanism. Now, this doesn't mean like
Yeah, she is one.
like
No,
on the
Margaret Cho is married to like a white guy, and she talks about it a lot about being like, you know, her background and dating who she's dating, and well,
she got
being
all these
married. They're
tattoos
married
too, and it's
now.
like this whole like I'm saying it's this whole punk rock thing where it's like tattoos and shock art, you know? Like I'm saying it's this mentality, it's the celebrity thing where you see it in the women there. It's like I can understand why the Hapa board would make Tila and Cho their enemies, but at the same time, it's like you have to respect that this is their own culture that they're following. And it's this very similar thing nobody's really addressing.
I mean, the HAPA board is just ridiculous because, I mean, what else would you choose? It's just like, would you rather kill yourself than being a mixed person?
Here's the thing:
I
there's this.
would embrace the fact that you have two cultures, and you can learn about your Asian culture and you can learn about the culture of being a white person.
Yeah, here's the thing though. There's this guy named Eurasian Writer. I've been following him for some time. He has a YouTube and he actually started the whole HAPA thing. He wrote a blog called Stuff Eurasian People Like. His whole argument is that if you're like white and half Asian, you're pretty much like the biggest loser ever, and that your existence is like worse than being mentally retarded because you suffer all the time. And he like on these YouTube videos just like lashes out that if you're half Asian, it's like you have a painful existence. And he assumes that all
Suffer from
HAPA women
what?
that you're a painful existence. This guy's anonymous. He just calls himself Eurasian Writer. I try to get out to him, but he hasn't contacted me back for some reason. He's just like he makes these YouTube videos and he assumes that everybody who's like half white, half Asian has like mental retard problems or something. Like he has a
That's
couple of
hilarious.
videos assuming that all HAPA women get into porn. Like they're all porn. And it's like, okay, well, it may be true that yeah, people can get into porn in weird ways, and it might be true that having mixed racial identity could cause like any universal problem. Doesn't mean to as a whole claim that this certain pairing is makes you into porn. It's like this is the porn star race or something.
No, I would say that's actually even like the minority in the group pairing for Asian people in porn is actually smaller versus like Latino people or like white people in general. So to have a category for mixed race Asian people is small to insignificant to non-existent.
Let, let me tell you something. You know, it's really funny.
You're more likely to get into porn if you're a Latino or if you're a busty white person.
Let me tell you know it's funny. 2 years ago, when I was at a different school, I was doing Asian studies in my freshman year, and like I was like friends with this really hot girl, and her dad was Mexican and her mother was Japanese, and she was like the most beautifully unique person ever, but she was more associated on the Japanese side, and like um she I don't think she was in the not like she's in the porn or anything, but she's just like a beautiful person. And like on my Twitter feed, I've been looking at actually Japanese Twitters. There's these models like Cyber Japan or something, and there's literally like there's some Japanese models who are mixed and they're pretty and like there's this uniqueness to it or something. And it's kind of
I
crazy
mean, mixed
because
people in general are unique
yeah. And what I'm
because
saying
you get
is
the features from both.
yeah, and it's also a unique thing that can happen on its own. It's like it's not just it's black or white, it's this own unique identity that can happen. So um I won't say her name.
Mixture between any races,
Yeah.
honestly. Because typically with Asian people, you have that traditional Asian beauty standard of the almond eyes, the pale skin, the long black hair,
Yeah, baby
or
face
like the
almond
typical
eyes.
geisha. Yeah, you have that typical geisha. So if there's any type of, and then if you're mixed in the Asian culture, they like to call you hafu or other
Yeah,
type of
Happa.
derogatory
Yeah.
names.
I just say Happa all the
Ha-
time. It doesn't really bother me, but the thing is like
Hafu.
yeah, Hafu. If you go on the Wikipedia page, it'll say like a common Hafu child, and this Hafu child is like, it's a beautiful little child. It's like there's nothing wrong or diseased about it. And I'm thinking to myself, if your Asian writer thinks this person's gonna have problems, it's weird because it's like you have really three choices. You can be like your dad's race, your mom's race, or this third position of this new race in development while you're synthesizing both those values. What I've seen is that some of my friends, especially some of my friends who are girls that are Asian, um, they tend to associate more on the Asian side. However, it's more like the men who will associate on their dad's side. I find that as a very interesting divergent thing. It's very few
I
that
mean, it's a
people will
typical
say.
thing.
It's very few if you say,
To
"Oh, I'm
identify
Asian"
with
or
their
"I'm Asian
father.
American," you know. But
I mean,
I
it's typical that people identify, like a male identifies with his father, as a female would take up characteristic traits from their mother. That's across the board psychology through proven through time, space, and all different fields of study with all children. That has nothing to do with them being particularly a biracial or mixed child.
now
Males tend to identify with their fathers and mimic them.
Now, it's also true that I think everyone goes to some form of discrimination, especially racial discrimination. I mean, I don't mean to be private or pry into your affairs, but I mean, have you ever felt any like racial discrimination because of your background and on your sides? I mean, how much of that happens
Oh yeah,
according,
of course,
I mean, how much of
all
that
the
happen?
time.
Yeah, like all the time, or is it more frequent? I mean, how do you balance that
It's
between the
more
positive?
frequent with. It's interesting because like I'm one of those delightful mixes where one half is very accepting while the other half is just like, we wish you had stayed to your traditional culture, and will remind my parents, like my dad honestly reminds him all the time, is like, you should have stayed Asian,
That's very true. I know, that's
diluting the
very funny.
bloodline.
But at the same time, it's like people go through these discriminated things, but as long as you keep this, I believe, positive face, somehow you can overcome it. But yet, I can understand and be sympathetic with anyone who feels a sort of discrimination. Although I think we very live through a victimization culture. Do you think that's true where everyone's a victim?
Not everyone's a victim. It depends on where you are. If you Like, honestly, this country is very more so, although we have groups like the alt-right and although we have groups that are anti-mixing and anti-mingling, this country as a whole is more accepting to people who are biracial, people who are of other ethnic backgrounds, especially if you are like Asian or if you are like other types of mixes.
But isn't
I mean,
Black Lives Matter important?
it is, but it's not, that doesn't really reflect onto the country as a whole.
I mean,
Like,
it's
I don't see as a large group Asian people are over like getting discriminated against. I don't see the country as a whole discriminating against anything outside of Muslims at the moment because of everything going on with terrorism and the scare of the Middle East.
and it's also true that it's funny. I mean, I don't know, but Donald Trump has won, and he's going to become our president. And it seems to me in the next 4 years, things are going to get more tension driven. And this might be true that I think like people are going to their pockets of own racial nationalism, and so maybe Black Lives Matter will become more. I don't want to make future predictions, but it seems to me it's going to become more like nationalist based. And then you might even have the alt right become White Lives Matter, and everybody's pretty much on their own. But like kids in a house that can't agree and they go to their own room, but yet come down to the kitchen when mom and dad says dinner's ready. And it's this really strange thing that's happening at the moment.
I don't believe so because there's always been black pro African American groups such as like the NCAA, like A, and like other types, like networks such as BET and etc. So there's always been movements or things within the African American community to promote African American and blackness. Black Lives Matter is just a new group, honestly, and it's just like an expansion of like the principles and the values that the NCAA had for a long time. It's
Now,
like there was always black movement groups, like Black Panthers.
mhm.
So
I
there's
think
always been groups. I don't feel like it's new.
now I'm not black, but I think that black identity is very important to have. And I'm not educated on the whole black history and black background. Though I will say this, I'm not ashamed to say that I'm white. Yet at the same time, if you do, it must mean that I have white privilege or that I should feel shame or at least help black people in some way overcome the traumas of the past which just seems good, but at the same time, it's causing a lot of
No,
tension, you know?
you shouldn't have to be for like you shouldn't feel obligated or inclined to like have to deny a part of who you are. If that's what you are, that's what you are. It's just also it's not like necessarily white privilege is one of those things on the forefront.
I have
It's
a
something that
I have a black friend who's a part
oh
of Black Lives Matter, and this friend says, as much as I love Black Lives Matter, I have to remember that I have a white dad, and therefore I have some white privilege, so my whiteness shouldn't get a hold of the agenda of what Black Lives Matter is about. And this seems so abstract and convoluted. I don't know what's white and black
no,
anymore.
that's ridiculous. Just because you have the whole thing I feel like the movement should be about isn't about like overly supporting like black people or things like that. The movement should be about stopping police brutality in all forms. It seems that it's attacking and more focused within the black community and within Latinos because we are a minority. Well, not well, we as in African Americans are a minority as in the population, but they take up a large majority in the prison system. So in that aspect, yes, Black lives do matter because how is a minority so large in a population of prisoners as with Latinos?
Now, this
And
might
that's
be,
not a white privilege issue because not all white people are cops.
yeah, I know.
That's not black or white.
I want to stay kind of on the topic of this, but I'm using another story here, but it makes me think on that subject. I think it was about a year ago. I was taking Japanese, and I had a friend. He's black, and I think he has I think a Chinese mother, and his girlfriend. I remember being in Japanese right after class. He's such a nice kid. He has a Chinese girlfriend too, and that it's funny because black male Asian female is, or even the reverse, Asian male black female is kind of a rare thing, yet it does happen But from what I've known, this one kid, he understands that he's black, but at the same time has much more an enjoyment on the Asian side. And I was talking about, the whole what side do you choose? I mean, would you say that
Me.
that's okay for him to do that on more is or but you think there should be an equal leveling of his black identity?
Oh, it's one of those. Me personally, I'm mixed, and I decided to take the best from both cultures. I would like to think so. Like, I like to take the language, I like to take some of the arts and
Yeah.
things like that from the Asian culture and from the African American culture, just like the clothing styles, the different ways to do like hair designs, music. So
Yeah, because
I
I
would
actually
say
find
that
it really, I'm interested in that stuff, but it seems that people can get very exclusive and it's either you're in group or you're out group, or that, I don't know, it seems to me that there's definitely tensions between different races, and it seems to me that it's like, it seems like it's always one-sided. Like what I'm saying is my whole Asian Aryan thing I'm joking about is really because on the HAPA board, they say if you're half, you got to be Asian. You can't embrace white, because if you're white, you have white privilege. You're racist, and so like I'm actually rubbing it in their face on the HAPA board, saying, "Oh yeah, you can be half white and half Asian and be this marching Nazi, or just you're pro-white but you're like Asian." It's like, imagine, if you will, if any white nationalist was to be that proud of that, but then it's like their girlfriend or their wife is Chinese and then they have like three kids. And it's like, how can they really be that if they're, it's this funny irony. But at the same time, I think that's really happening, but they're keeping it a big secret. And it's really happening, ironically, in liberal communities in every major city. And I think the multiracial statistics of white male, Asian female is just, it's there simply because there's a lot of white people and there's a lot of Chinese or Asian in general, and it's most likely going to happen. And I think, I'm not advocating that racial mixing to happen, but it already has happened. And what are you going to do with that
it's been
generation?
happening.
Yeah. So people will call me, well, they'll tell me and say you're advocating race mixing, and that's this kind of Jewish thing. And I'm like, not really, because I don't have to advocate race mixing, is because it has already happened in the past 20 years, and now there's a whole millennial generation. Like, I'm
I
thinking of
wouldn't
a,
even say 20 years.
yeah, maybe
You could just
longer.
talk about the stories from like Vietnam War,
Oh
how
yeah.
many soldiers went over there, had illegitimate children, had their affairs and etc., and how there's many children in Korea, Vietnam, and other Asian countries like Laos and etc. because of wars. When you send your soldiers over there, they participated in brothels and they did other things and they had children.
Yeah.
So there's been mixing for many centuries. There's always been that stigma of like when white people would go and see geisha people or when they would go see dancers. It's not new. It's just now we have more statistics and data to prove those numbers out.
Do you know about anything of the Japanese Brazilian people in Brazil? That is a huge, I believe, Afro kind of Asian thing that's even happening in the country of Brazil. And those Brazilian Japanese happen to be almost the ruling elite too, which is kind of interesting to think about. Even in some parts of the Southeast Islands, I'm thinking of in Japan, Okinawa. Um, Even though that's kind of a place where America went, a lot of American soldiers have stayed there, and it's often been said that there's quote unquote darker skin from those islands. But that's just a kind of a prejudice. But you
Well,
see
that's
that,
a tan.
yeah, tan. And there seems to be that when these things has happened, these people have made their own niches and have their own and I'm just using this as an example of the whole Brazilian side, and yet at the same time, the Japanese have been giving support to those Japanese Brazilians in Brazil, and I feel like there is this kind of harmony. And even if you don't belong in the family, there's going to be support because I know for one thing you belong in the family. And you know what I'm saying? Or
Oh yeah, I mean it's been increased. Like as of recently, Japan did have their first Miss Japan be somebody who is of mixed race. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like more raising awareness of those people out there who are mixed race Japanese people or mixed race
Yeah, yeah,
Asians in general.
yeah, and I think I would say this too. I mean, I'm actually I have a friend too. I do have some friends who are come from many different backgrounds and have that Asian background too. And I'm thinking to myself, like, do you think in the future that there could be these pockets of different Asian this, Asian that? However, everybody is an alliance or at least shakes hands and understands their own self determination aspect. And still there can be like I'm saying is this is kind of the next step after multiculturalism. You know what I'm saying? Like in a multicultural society, the ideal was supposedly that everyone would racially mix and then supposedly we become this utopian all one race. However, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is there has been a lot of racial mixing in the past like 50 years. However, I think what is happening is everyone's making out almost new nations or new ethno states and countries, and rather everyone's just shaking hands and agreeing upon if you're this, you belong to that. So people are becoming more categorized in a catalog or something.
No, I mean definitely with the advent of technology, with the ability to get on planes, get in cars, catch trains, you are able to do things that they were never able to previously do. Like
Mm,
in the past, people from Japan will never be able to make it to the United States, but now simple flight, like 10, 11 hours, you can easily be in parts of the U.S. and people in the U.S. can easily be in parts of Japan. So, and it's more cheaper than it was previously. Before, if you wanted to fly, it would easily cost hundreds and thousands of dollars. Now it's more accessible and more people are capable of doing so. So
yeah,
with that, there's going to be more mixing because you come to find out, hey, I can travel to these places and meet somebody, and it's like, hey, we have things in common, so, and I like you.
oh, yeah.
Versus before, where somebody who lived in New York would never have the opportunity to meet somebody who lived in Palestine, Japan, or China. Like it just would never happen. So
You
you
know,
tend to stay in the community because you didn't see the other side of things.
if there's a nightclub in Philadelphia really close to Chinatown, most likely the Chinese are going to be in there, and then there's going to be a mingle between the two races of upper class whites and some of the Chinese who live in the city. And I think white male Asian female coupling happens a lot in that scene simply because there are two races being there. However, it's funny because at the same time, however, I do believe that there's always tension and conflict if they get too close in proximity. Like in the whole cliche is in South Africa you have black versus white, and then in the Middle East it's Jews versus Palestinians, and yet at the same time, I think it's really strange that there's just some races that click, like this white and Chinese thing happening in upper class Philadelphia, and they're just having their own scene there.
Well, I like you said, it's you're in close proximity to each other. People from Center City, Philadelphia, downtown South Philly are able to intermingle with people from Chinatown and other parts of South Philly that has a heavier Asian community. Like in South Philadelphia, there's the Cambodian area section of the city, there's a Korean section of the city, and there's a Chinese section of the city. So if you live within a 2 mile proximity to each other, you're going to run into these people at a nightclub while you go out. You check out the grocery store in that community because, hey, there's cheaper food, there's cheaper products, so you run into people there. So, in a diverse area like that, you're more likely to run into those people. Versus if you live in the suburbs, then there's typically only one group of people, and it's white people, so you're more likely to make contact with them.
I think
In the city and downtown,
there's
it's
a lot
different.
of I'm gonna say I live in a suburban area. There's been a lot of Chinese families moving in, and they come from actually elite backgrounds. But yeah, I understand where you're coming from. Is that especially in some Midwest, there's only one group of people. But from where I am, yeah, I assume that yeah, there is different pockets of racial groups. But um, I was talking to a friend, and this friend is named Liberal Revolution, and supposedly he has a cousin named Dave, and might sound funny, but Dave is a white Jamaican, and he says that he loves the Jamaican Chinese people, and he said he always would approach them or something, and he said that they're the best Jamaican, or is that kind of a personal preference of his, or some kind of? Don't you think that's
Oh,
strange?
this is my no, this is my forte. That's what I am. I'm that type of
Like
mixture. Like
even
my
that, a
one
white
parent is
Jamaican.
Asian, one parent is Jamaican. It happens. It's very common actually. There's like very suburban areas of Jamaica where there's from the UK, like because of the colonization of Britain to Jamaica, there's areas where it's filled with people who are white, as there are areas filled with people who are Jamaican and people who are Chinese from doing business with the European traders.
Yeah. Well,
So
this is a friend, and he's actually a white Jamaican, and he said that he finds all the Jamaican Chinese beautiful, even though they're kind of it's condemned in Jamaica because it's like there's these have you seen discrimination in Jamaica because of that?
it's not condemned as much as it is more so like people, there's a jealousy there
Uh,
because people in Jamaica, they do bleach their skin, they do whiten their skin. So there are these groups of people who naturally are lighter and naturally have the other features that they seek. So it's not really a discrimination, it's just more so of a jealousy because there's a large group of population that bleach and they do other things to make their features more European, and there's these Chinese people who naturally have more pale skin. They do have straight black hair, and those are like they get the wigs, they whiten their skin trying to have those features. So it's not really like
okay.
a racial thing. It's more of a jealous thing.
Okay. That's interesting. Do you would you be do you think it's okay for any Asian person to be an advocate of feminism?
I feel like any person who is of female to be an advocate of feminism, I feel like feminism one of those things that should be able to cross racial lines. As a female, all females typically go through certain struggles. Like that wage gap isn't just a black, white, Asian thing. It's a I'm a female and I get paid less
Now
than a male. It
here's
doesn't
the
really.
thing. Have you ever heard of something called quote unquote yellow feminism before? Do you know about that?
Yes, yes, I do.
Okay, so let me just say, so supposedly if you're like a Chinese woman and some foreigner has told you the glories of feminism, right? And supposedly it's not the Western translation. The Western of translation gets convoluted with feminism. Supposedly the ideal in feminism is you gotta overcome the patriarchy. However, in the context of Asian women, they're going against Asian patriarchy. And how do you go against Asian patriarchy? You dislike Asian males, and then you go ahead and you date a non-Asian, particularly a white male, and then you end up liking white society, which is the old-fashioned traditional patriarchy, then making the whole feminist school hypocritical. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things within the Asian community is that as an Asian person, you should maintain that Asian like bloodline, blood trait. Asian people typically hate mixing and intermingling. Even among other Asians, like Chinese people typically like to stay within Chinese, Japanese with like Japanese people because they felt like for a long period of time these two countries felt like they were the center of the world, and they would like to keep that thing going. Like there's Chinese people who would never want to be with an Indian or a Cambodian just because they're Asian. It's just like we still want to stay within our Chinese culture. So the worst kick in the like kick in the nuts really towards someone who is Chinese as a woman would be to date somebody who is white because of the destruction that white people has caused to different parts of China economically and through their promotion of those
Now, what if I told you,
like not communism but
what if I told you that Asian Aryanism would rather be an advocate for yellow feminism simply because it will increase the rate of white Asian coupling and use this kind of strange rhetoric to then create this mix of white Asian people. But yeah, that's what I'm saying is that you can only be an advocate of this form of feminism only that it benefits another side of the party.
I feel like no one should be or take a part of any type of coupling just to benefit a side of the party. They should take a part of the coupling because that's what they want to do. That's what they're interested
Uh,
in.
so it's
Like
more
I
like
would hate for someone to make a kid just so they could like I want to just go against the patriarchy.
well, some people, I don't know, some people accidentally have, and it's actually created accidental things. Like, are you more like the libertarian or freedom of association side or something? Or am I looking too deep in this?
I would say I'm more libertarian. I feel like people should be allowed to do what they would like to do without having any type of social stigmas behind them or like any type of feelings of I'm doing something against my community. Like I would hate for my friends who are Caucasian to not be able to date someone who is of Asian descent just because they're not keeping it in with the pro Caucasian, pro blonde hair, pro blue eyes.
Now let
And
me
I would hate for the same token that to happen to someone who is of my Asian friends or Asian descent to say, I can't date them because they're not Chinese. I can't date them because they're not Japanese.
Now let me tell you, all my white friends who like date uh Asian girls, and I know one who's getting married. I know like four friends, especially in like the board game group and some of my game groups I go to. I sometimes have like if we get really close, and sometimes we have an honest discussion about race. It usually ends with like, nope, I don't want to talk about it, or I don't know what you're talking about. They'll often say that their girlfriend or even this guy's wife is this really has nothing to do with race at all. And I treat her like an individual, and she's great. However, on the other side, if you were to really ask like their Chinese partner, they'll be like, "Oh no, I married him because he's a successful white man, and I like white culture." Yet it's coming from the white man's side where he's being more. This really has nothing to do with white identity and it has really something to do with universal values. And I hope everyone becomes a part of this universal utopia. And so, like, he's putting a blindfold on his eyes. And so, when I say that I advocate Asian Aryanism, really what I'm trying to say is that these people should just you're not making a baby to go against the patriarchy. Rather, you've accidentally created this own group, but you're too scared and afraid to talk about it. The same way how Donald Trump won this country. Every person who said they were going to vote for Hillary just not to offend their friends all voted for Trump because they just can't stand the political correct regime of today. I think it's the same thing happened with all these white male Asian females couplings is simply because they think they're for this multicultural society, but rather what has happened is that I use this word they're new cucks for this not admitting their potentials of now becoming a part of this new race of Asian whites or Asian Aryans or something. You know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. I feel like people should own up to it. If that's what you're attracted to, that's what you're attracted to. The
Yeah.
same way the wife was able to say, I'm attracted to him because he is a Caucasian person and he is successful enough to take care of me or
I
has the ability to financially be stable.
I have a guy friend
To just own up to
who
that he's
says
attracted
that
to her because she's Asian.
I have a guy friend and I talked to him about this before and he tatted honestly tell me he said I don't want you to tell anyone else this but I really only prefer like Chinese girls and I really hope that maybe I can find myself a Chinese girl. But I don't mean to be racist. It's just I like them and I know I can pick one up if I'm at the bar or something like that. Yet and it's funny because he's scared about that, so he pretends that he likes and wants to date his white women. At the same time, however, white girls are almost impossible to date because of the whole rampant feminism thing happening. And if you're a white male, you got a white female. The white female is like a feminist. She hates you no matter what because she wants this really aggressive form of feminism, which really goes against that white coupling. So really, what's happening? The feminism on the white side is really this. It's making more white males flee to other non-whites so they don't have to deal with it. And most likely, if there's an Asian woman for feminism or yellow feminism or just a natural traditional Asian girl, they'll fall for that more often. Other the case is that if like I know this other guy who's literally just like he's in the student activities and whatever, he has an Asian girlfriend. I ask him about it and he'll get offended, or he just, no, it has nothing to do, put your blind spot on. And so it's just this thing that's happening, and it's just like it's a secret, you know? It's weird.
I mean, I don't think it's a secret with the new age of feminism and how there's this women are, instead of like promoting their values and their views, they're instead attacking males and white males, to be specific, saying, trying to beat down the patriarchy instead of working together in order to break it down together and working as a group to
Yeah.
see how we could dismantle it. They're saying we don't want anything to do with patriarchal white males. However, at
I
the same time, that does open the door for
It's so hard
these
to be a
intermingling.
yeah, it's so hard for a white nationalist to take pride in his fellow white woman, is simply because you're going to have to deal with a white woman that's most likely going to have feminist leaning attitudes, or some liberal attitude that completely contradicts the white man's interest in his own nationalist interest. So I always found that really strange contradiction in white nationalism. Will they say, well, I only prefer white women, but at the same time, white women will more likely follow those feminist leaning, or I don't want to say selfish, but like things that contradict the nature of having. But the thing is, at the same time, if there is supposed to be a good birth rates among whites, at least both parties, male and female, should agree upon what makes a family. And I think right now, I have to agree on this, is that if I'm sympathetic to white nationalists, I agree that there is a lacking. There is definitely a damaging on both sides of male and female, especially on the female, because if you go back the female, then you can't have children, and then the white man's going to look for someone else. And so, like, I feel as though that Asian females are basically have the answer to this, and they're answering all the traumas and politically correct liberal world right now. And that's what I think. What's happening is that it's accidentally created, and all these white males who've given up on their feminist white women have flocked to Asian women. And I think, I say God bless them, and I'm all for it. I just wish people were more honest about it.
No, I'm definitely like all for honesty. If you could say, I have a particular preference, however, I am willing to date somebody of another, like, you could always say, it's like, I have a preference towards white women, however, seeing as though white women have not been taking an interest in me due to my age or climate within their feminist groups and movements, because there are, the city that we live in, there is a large group of liberal women who do believe in pro-feminism, anti-establishment. So you are unable to find a partner in this climate of dating. So you could have a preference towards white women. However, Asian women are more apt to be dating you, who's to say, don't pursue the person who is showing attraction to you.
That's It's funny because this might sound cute. I dated an Asian feminist girl recently, like Chinese feminist girl. But here's the thing: she was like hanging out with other white feminist girls who are like, "Oh yeah, I hate white men. They're disgusting." But it's like, it's funny because I can approach the Chinese feminist girl simply because I can relate onto her side of her, why she would be in feminism. Yet at the same time, once again, I was talking about this yellow feminism states that if translated right, you know, white men, I think, are more able to approach Asian feminists simply because, one, they can understand more where they're coming from, and it's more of there's some like, it does, like, it's not that effective, I'm thinking, for a non-white feminist, or what I'm saying, or it's something strange I've noticed. Like, I'm saying, it's like whites will date Asian feminists but not white feminists. I think that's really funny.
Well, the whole point of Asian feminism and going against their thing is to date white people, versus white feminism is going against the grain and saying they're sick and tired of white guys, expecting them to just birth babies and make them sandwiches.
I
So
know, but the thing, it's
Asian
like,
feminism is
do
geared towards getting somebody who's outside the Asian race and going against that traditional Asian standard.
I mean, I don't have a voice on this, but would you? I don't know, but would you think like white feminists get mad if they see like a white man with an Asian feminist and think they're oppressing her or something? Or you don't have a
Honestly, I feel like I don't see it as much in that community versus as I see it in other communities where they see their males going against them and dating other side. Like for example, my like within my own things, I often see African American people getting highly upset when they see black males dating white women. I don't see that same outrage when there's a black male dating an Asian woman.
yeah,
It's a
it's
different
rare.
type of outrage.
That's what I'm saying. And if it does happen, God bless. I hope it works out, and I hope everything's. But once again, there's a lot. Do you know of Jiro? He's an enka
No, I
singer.
do not.
He's an enka singer. He's from Pittsburgh. He comes from I think his mother I think is half Japanese, but he's like a unique black Japanese, and he's very big in Japan. But I think he's kind of the icon of the whole popular Afro-Asianism, along with the Miss Japan recently. I can't recall her name, but it seems it is there, the whole Afro Asian thing, especially on the Japanese side. But I think so is I'm all for. Oh, sorry. I am, I can't really speak for the interest simply because I'm not black. I can only speak for the interests of white and Asians. And so I feel that it's always respectful to, let people have their own little boundaries and respect that they can grow. And, that's why I think Asianarianism is offensive, is simply because the Hapa Reddit, the social justice warriors, and whatever, they think innately that if you're white, you're probably a racist, and it's even more disgusting if you're an Asian Aryan. Not only on the far right that you're some kind, you're race mixing or some Jewish behavior, but on the part that why would you escape the people of color and make a self-determined like punk people? And so, I think Asian Aryanism, I'm going to keep using the word because it's funny, it's there. They go to punk rock shows, like they see Juju and Mitski and Atari Teenage Riot, and they're there, and it's fun. And I think people have these people that they're, I think it's growing, and I think there needs to be more of a voice out there. And so it's like, I don't care if I'm causing offense anymore, because it's just a part of doing this now. And I can understand. I hope that someone on the far right and far left can understand where I'm coming from. And I think I'm criticizing both sides at the same time, which makes Asian Aryanism pretty much the ultimate uh ideology that I'm speaking of. So I don't know.
No, both sides should be criticized because it's impossible to keep on thinking that, like, for the left liberals who are just like, oh, white guys are racist, that's an innate belief. Like, racism isn't something that you're born with, it's something that's a learned behavior. And then on the far right, where it's just like, why all white people should stay within their own groups and communities, that doesn't allow for growth, that doesn't allow for maturity, and that doesn't allow for new ideas and new thoughts. So both mindsets and ideologies do need to change in a sense.
Yeah. Like, I'm definitely for freedom of association and for culture. And so, do whatever you want, speak freely, because if you speak freely, it's the most dangerous thing to do. So, I'm going to wrap up the podcast at the moment, but is there one last thing you would like to talk about, Kira?
No, that's all for today.
Awesome. I think we got a lot accomplished in this talk. Thank you so much for being on.
No problem. It was my pleasure.